members and hundreds of thousands of more throughout the airline industry will lose their job on October the 1st if Congress doesn't act now. We need a clean extension of the airline payroll support program through March the 31st, 2021, and we need it now. This isn't about me or any of the people standing around me at the podium today. This is about members out in the field like Tony Valentine, a wife of 5 who supports her family as a United Airlines reservation agent in Detroit. This is about throwing hundreds of thousands of more workers on the unemployment lines and shutting off any hope of making any economic recovery in the near future. Remember, airline workers not only physically move our economy, they are also consumers and taxpayers who support small businesses. Tony from Detroit and thousands more like her are counting on Congress to take action now. You know, this is one of the few things that both parties can actually agree upon. We have a majority bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate and the White House to pass a clean extension of the airline payroll support program. The payroll support program has kept hundreds of thousands of airline workers on the payroll and with health care benefits since its passage in the CARES Act. Unfortunately, that time runs out in just 8 days, and air travel continues to be far below the levels that were expected in 2019. The experts tell us we aren't likely to see a recovery in the airline industry until after the first quarter in 2021. But in the meantime, we must not abandon the men and women who are critical to the recovery as a nation. We will need the full force of our airline workers to lift our country back up when America is ready to fly again. Please pass a clean extension of the airline payroll support program now. We owe it to our nation's airline workers who have already served us bravely through these most difficult times. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I'm Doug Parker, CEO of American Airlines. Thank you all for being here. The group you see in front of you is keenly aware of the high stakes of this moment of time for our nation and for our federal government. We recognize the huge loss that comes with the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and we understand that the attention of Congress is trained on commemorating her remarkable life and legacy and determining a path forward for the seat on the court that is now vacant. But we all know that is far from the only challenge our country's facing. We're here today with a message of urgency. There is now strong bipartisan support for extension of the payroll support program. But if Congress can't come together on a mechanism by which to extend PSP by October 1st, 8 days from today, small communities will lose air service and 19,000 American Airlines aviation professionals will be furloughed. We simply cannot let that happen. Airline employees keep our country moving at a time when much of the world is paralyzed with fear. And so long as we keep these hardworking aviation professionals trained and employed, they will be here ready to help our country and our economy rebound from this economic crisis. Now, everyone seems to understand that now, which is why we have such strong bipartisan support. I just can't believe that we may not be able to do the right thing simply because our elected officials can't come to any sort of compromise agreement. We're better than that. And the people that are out there putting their uniforms on every day, keeping our country moving safely during this pandemic, they deserve our best. So we're not going to give up. It's time for Congress to come together and do what they know is right. Figure out a mechanism to extend the payroll support program. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julie Hedrick. I'm the National President for the Association of Professional Flight Attendants, and I represent 27,000 American Airlines flight attendants. I'm here today on behalf of the 8,000 furloughed American Airlines flight attendants, as well as all the other aviation workers who will lose their paychecks and their health care in 8 days. Today, labor leaders and airline leaders stand together and urge Congress to prevent this devastating job loss from happening. We need a clean extension of the payroll support program through March 2021. Every day I hear from flight attendants, and they are trying to figure out how they are going to survive without their paychecks and especially without their health care. We are the essential workers who have been flying throughout this entire pandemic. They are desperate for Congress to take action on this now. When aviation struggles, it's not just about the airlines. It's about the small communities. It's also about the other industries that depend on aviation. They will also suffer. Millions of Americans will be directly affected by if the airline industry is not kept strong. We appreciate the congressional bipartisan support, but now it's time to seal the deal and get this done.
Thank you all. I'm Scott Kirby, CEO of United Airlines. It speaks to the severity of the crisis that I can thank my fellow CEOs, union partners, and our elected representatives, particularly Chairman DeFazio and Ranking Member Graves, for being here with us today. It's unusual to see a group united like this. I'm here on behalf of the 100,000 people of United Airlines who are essential workers, who from the beginning of the pandemic have been on the front lines of the crisis. Back in March and April, when none of us knew what was going to happen and most of us were sheltering at home, they were getting on airplanes and carrying sometimes 2 or 3 people that were medical professionals to the hot spots in New York and New Jersey. They were flying airplanes to China and bringing back personal protective equipment and medical gear. And what Congress did and the administration did back in March was remarkable effort to save the U.S. economy and to save aviation. But this is taking longer and is deeper than most people expected 6 months ago. And the reality is we need to do more to keep those professionals employed and to keep their support for the economy intact. Because it's not just about the tens of thousands of people whose jobs are at risk. That's important. But it's also about the indirect jobs that all of them support. We are a critical cog for the economy. We're a multiplier effect. And we will ultimately defeat this virus. And when there's a vaccine and when the economy is ready to bounce back to full normal, we need these aviation professionals to be here to support that robust rebound for the entire economy. That's why we're here today, imploring those in Congress, those in the administration, everyone here in Washington to do the right thing. That's something we're fond of saying at United Airlines when we have a difficult question. Just do the right thing. Everyone agrees, as the others have said, that the right thing to do, both sides of the aisle, is to extend the payroll support program through March. If we can do that, we ought to be able to get that done. We can save these jobs, keep those critical links for the economy going, and be prepared to bounce back strongly when we ultimately defeat the virus. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Captain Joe DePete, and I'm the president of the Airline Pilots Association International, and I'm proud to represent over 63,000 pilots who fly for 35 U.S. and Canadian airlines. And I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the loss that our nation and our union felt at the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a towering advocate for equality among workers and the dignity of work for all. I'm here today to remind everybody that time is running out for Congress and the administration to act and save the jobs of frontline aviation workers across this country, including thousands of members of the Airline Pilots Association. In only a few days, the CARES Act payroll support program will expire. If that happens, aviation workers will be out on the streets and on the unemployment lines through no fault of their own. This harm to frontline workers is entirely avoidable. I want to emphasize that. It's entirely avoidable, and it's in our national interest to prevent it. Airline pilots need Congress and the administration to extend the payroll support program, and we believe that there's still time to get that done. The stakes are high, obviously. We must do this. Failing to extend the payroll support program will not only result in severe financial hardships for tens of thousands of aviation workers and their families, but it will also threaten the airline industry's broader contributions that they bring to this nation. After all, U.S. airline industry workers help drive the U.S. economy. They support the U.S. military, transport American goods and services, and provide essential air service to small and mid-sized communities. Allowing thousands of aviation workers to lose their jobs will also have long-term consequences. When the economy recovers, and it will recover, we won't be able to simply flip a switch and bring highly trained pilots, flight attendants back online overnight. It takes time to retrain them and prepare them to maintain our industry's highest standards of safety. Simply put, October is too late. November is way too late. Airline worker relief doesn't work retroactively, and Congress must act now. We've heard encouraging words about a relief package from the U.S. government leaders on both sides of the aisle. That's good news. But airline pilots and other aviation workers need more than words. We need action, and we need it quickly. Airline pilots have done our part to help this nation through this public health crisis and helped our industry weather an economic storm. From the onset of the pandemic, airline pilots have been on the job, doing our jobs courageously, taking risks. We've transported medical personnel to outbreak hotspots and kept the global supply chains moving. And we're also contributing to our industry's recovery through ALPA's just announced advertising initiative, reminding the public that when they're ready to fly again, we are ready for takeoff. Now, airline pilots, flight attendants are doing our jobs to speed the recovery in our industry, and now we need Congress and the White House to do theirs. Thank you very much for your attention. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here today. My name is Robin Hayes, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of JetBlue. A lot has been said, but I'd like to give you our perspective. You know, we're based in New York, and I'm here on behalf of our 23,000 amazing crew members. And as all of you know, nowhere was touched deeper than New York with the coronavirus pandemic. Back in March, our crew members were going to work scared, terrified, but also worried about their jobs and what was going to happen. They carried medical workers into New York to deal with all the patients in overflowing New York hospitals. And they were there for our country and our airline and our industry when most of us were sheltering in place. They did their jobs. They did it out of a sense of duty and commitment. They did it for each other, and every day they went home to their families who were concerned about their safety. We didn't know a lot about the coronavirus then that we know now, and yet they stepped up and they did their job. So I'm here with just one request on behalf of 23,000 JetBlue crew members who have done their job. And we need Congress to do their job. We have bipartisan support. We have support from the White House. We have support from the Democrats. We have support from the Republicans. So our crew members sit there and say, we did our job. Why can't they do their job? If we can't get this done when there is agreement, what can we get done? You've heard all the arguments why the airline industry is so important for our country and our nation. It is a huge chunk of our GDP. And when we get into next year and hopefully we start seeing a proper recovery, we will be here and our people will be here. People vote for their elected representatives to go to Washington or go to their state house and do their job. We have 23,000 JetBlue crew members who have done their job. We have all these amazing essential workers at other airlines in the US that have done their job. I'll say it one more time. Please, Congress, we need you to do your job and we need you to do it now.
Good afternoon. My name is Captain Eric Ferguson. I'm the president of the Allied Pilots Association, representing the nearly 15,000 pilots of American Airlines. I want to start off by thanking Congress and the administration for their support back in March, leading to a 6-month vital lifeline for our industry as we fought the pandemic and learned more and more every day. Hope is on the horizon, but we need more help to get over that horizon. Whenever a crisis arrives in the air, we are forced to choose the correct procedure. We are forced to assess the amount of time we have to meet that emergency. And then we must execute the procedure flawlessly and decisively. That is what we are asking Congress to do and the administration at this point. We must act now to prevent catastrophic damage to our major economic engine of the U.S. airlines. Must act now. Choose the correct procedure, extend the payroll support program. And again, I want to thank Ranking Member Graves and Chairman DeFazio for their incredible support here. We know we have support across the board for this. We need to get it done. We need to get it done now. We do not have enough fuel in the tanks to fly on for forever here. We need Congress to refuel our tanks, keep us going, get us over the horizon. We are seeing progress. We can get there, but we cannot get there without the aid required by the PSP. With that, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Nelson. I'm president of the Association of Flight Attendants. At the beginning of this pandemic, representing 50,000 flight attendants at 20 different airlines. This is unprecedented. Industry and unions united standing in front of you, but it is not unprecedented in our work. Because when there is a crisis in aviation, we always come together. We always put safety first. We always learn from our mistakes and make corrections to make sure they do not happen again. In March, that's what we did together with the leadership of Chairman DeFazio in crafting the payroll support program. We made a program that was a relief program, not a bailout. It didn't just go to corporations, it was built from the ground up. The money was focused on workers, focused on jobs, and there were certain requirements that came with it. No involuntary furloughs, continued service to all of our communities, carrying the U.S. mail, carrying critical infrastructure to our communities, critical personnel to help fight this virus, medicines to our veterans. It also required a cap on executive compensation. You're welcome, guys. And a ban on stock buybacks and dividends. There's been nothing like this in U.S. history before, but it's because this industry came together, heard the American people, and said, we're going to craft a relief package that is like no other before, keeping people in their jobs. And that is why the deadline of October 1st is so critical right now. And it is why you see such cooperation and agreement. There is agreement all over Washington. You see that with the representatives who are here with us today, Democrats and Republicans and independents, all standing together, all saying that they support keeping aviation workers in our jobs and continuing to support all the economic activity and jobs that our jobs support as well. But support is not enough. We are not going to hand out participation trophies. We have 8 days. 8 days until this egg is scrambled and we can't go back. We must continue the payroll support program that has been the most effective jobs program of coronavirus relief, the most effective use of the public's money. And so on a balance sheet, everyone agrees. Fiscal conservatives to progressives, across the spectrum, everyone agrees. But this is not a political assessment today. This is real people moving their stuff into their cars and trying to figure out how to survive. This is a mother and a father who are both flight attendants on the furlough list with a special needs son who are in jeopardy of losing their medical insurance that takes care of him. This is about the flight attendant who is on the furlough list again. She was on the furlough list after 9/11, and she's on the furlough list again. Her husband is waiting for a heart transplant, and if she loses her health insurance, they fall off the list. These are real people. And there is real agreement all over this hill and in the White House. There is no reason that this should be delayed a single day longer. This country needs relief now. We all come together all the time. As Americans, we come together all the time. When the government shut down a year ago, people came to our security checkpoints with kindness in their heart and offering help to our transportation security officers, because that's who we are as Americans. And the airline industry is so important that when a few planes stopped, all of a sudden, this hill had a deal. We know, as union negotiators and as heads of airlines, that when two parties want to reach a deal, it can come together in a matter of hours. That is what we expect. Inaction is not an option. So I want to thank the leadership of Chairman Peter DeFazio of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and the leadership of Ranking Member Sam Graves, who are here today together to demonstrate the agreement all over this place. We just have to get it done. Let's hear from Chairman DeFazio and Ranking Member Graves.
Well, it was said earlier, but I'm going to repeat it. The most successful element of the CARES package was the payroll support program that we ran. We used the airlines essentially as the unemployment office. You know, in my state, there are people who applied in March, gig workers, because they're a new category. They still haven't gotten their benefits. And my state is not unique. All across America, Americans are hurting. And we need things that work efficiently to get them help. We need to extend the entire CARES package with elements from our HEROES bill here in the House. And the point of the spear of getting this done, to get people to the table, could be this package. 100,000 jobs on the line, predominantly union jobs, family wage jobs. You've heard the stories of what it means when those people lose their jobs. 100,000 people in one day. That's a big hit from coronavirus. So this package, with the bipartisan agreement, could be the point of the spear in getting our leadership together to negotiate CARES 2, HEROES. I don't care what you call it. We have to do this package. We have to extend the federal unemployment benefits. We have to support small business. We have to help the states. There's a long list of things that need to be done. There's agreement from all the economists and the Federal Reserve this needs to get done. And we're here today talking about a microcosm of that. 100,000 people, and they face a really, really short deadline. We have to get this done before October 1st. And this could help millions, tens of millions of Americans by being the thing that got people to the table and got the job done. With that, I'd like to introduce my partner on this, my friend Sam Graves, my ranking member.
Thanks, Peter. I want to echo everything that Peter said. This is vitally important to get done. And folks, this isn't. I hear so much talk about this being an airline bailout. This isn't a bailout of the airlines. This isn't as a result of bad corporate decisions or bad business decisions. This is as a result of government decisions. And this is something that it's imperative that we see this extension done. You know, it comes to workers, and that's what it comes down to, as was pointed out. And these are highly skilled positions. It takes years of training and hundreds of thousands of dollars in many cases to just to qualify for many of the positions in the airline industry. We absolutely cannot let an entire sector of the economy collapse, and that's exactly what will happen if we do not get this extension done. So thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Yep.
Again, thank you all very much. Hopefully you get the message. As my head of communications said, we've been saying this, we've been saying this over and over again, and she said, just about the time you think you're sick of saying it, people might be starting to listen. So we hope that people are listening. This isn't availability, so we can take some questions if you like.
What's the plan B for the airlines if Congress doesn't act? Is there any assistance that the administration could give you that could defer some of the layoffs? And secondly, can I ask all three of you, do you plan to accept the Treasury loans before September 30th from the separate $25 million pot?
Yeah, look, again, sure.
Yeah.
Question is if there's another plan, if we don't get Congress to act, that's the preferred plan. What we need is some mechanism by which PSP to be extended, and there are several ways that can be done. Ideally, it would be through a COVID relief bill. That's where we're focusing our efforts. But if that doesn't work, we'll go anywhere else we can to try and figure out any mechanism to get done what people want to get, what everyone says they want to get done for us. So anyway, this is by far the preferred option. It's the most efficient option. It actually helps all Americans. So we think it's the best option. But if not, we'll look to other areas as well. I can answer your question for American. We have indeed agreed to a loan from the U.S. Treasury Department.
As has United. Yeah.
We'll make a decision on that in the near future.
We all have been meeting with the leadership regularly. The airlines met last week with Chief of Staff Meadows at the White House. We went with the Speaker the following day. There has been so much work that's been done. We've been pounding on the same doors over and over again. What we need to do is have the people with whom we've been speaking sit down together at a table and work out a deal. If you look at the figures that have been quoted by the Speaker and the figures quoted by the White House as the President expressed support, they're in a very narrow range. I mean, it's a compromise waiting to happen. They just need to talk. Yeah.
Yes, we're all meeting. It's coronavirus, so much of it is by phone and Zoom, but we're all meeting constantly and engaged with the offices all the time. And also, I should note that flight attendants and other aviation workers have been meeting with congressional representatives in their congressional districts. In fact, there was a large group outside of Leader Schumer's office today. and have been outside Senator Rubio's office and John Cornyn's office and Cory Gardner's office and Amy Klobuchar's office. That's just in the last 2 days. That will continue. We will continue to meet with them every which way we can in official meetings with all of us, and their constituents will continue to hear directly from them.
Okay, the question was, I suggested there are looking to other alternatives. I'm talking about other alternatives prior to October 1st. On October 1st, the furloughs happen. Those are in place. The individuals know who they are. They believe that's going to happen. We're doing everything we can to make sure that absolutely does not happen. It'd be a very, very horrific event, I think, if that happens, given all the support. But if we can't get this done by October 1st, I mean, absent absolute certainty that will happen in the very near future, yeah, those furloughs happen on the 1st. That's why that's the urgency we're talking about.
Karen?
You've got some pretty big airlines of A4A here, but is there 100% support across all A4A members, including for all conditions of this service?
The question was, we've got some leading airlines here, but there are other members. Is there unanimous support? The answer is decidedly yes. Believe it or not, we actually, of our membership, 5 of them are having their own board meetings today. So, and believe me, they are all talking about it and talking about their support for an extension of the Payroll Support Act. So I think we probably have time for one more question.
For the CEOs, what do you say to those who think that this just delays the inevitable until April, that there will still be furloughs at that point, and that this only stops the bleeding for now?
Look, I think one big important point for why that's not accurate, and that by the time we get to April, is that we're going to know far more about a vaccine and when a vaccine is available. The problem for us today is that is so far over the horizon that we put our whole companies at risk if we don't do something in a world where our revenues are down 85%. And by the time we get to March, though, even if we're not past the coronavirus, and there's a good chance we won't be past it by the end of March, but we'll have a lot more certainty, and we'll be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and know when we're going to be past it, and then we can carry that risk because we'll have more confidence that within 3 months or 6 months that we're going to be past it. And so I think we'll be in a much, not for sure, but I think we'll be in a much different position come March 31st than we are today because we'll have more certainty.
Pete.
Testing before international flights.
Yeah.
I know you guys have supported that in the past. Is that something that's still a continuing conversation? Where does that stand with the federal government?
It is. The issue is air bridges and creating air bridges to start with international governments. It'll be a great way to open up the borders and begin to open the economies and reconnect the economies. The idea is that you would test before you get on an airplane so that you know that when you get there that you're safe and you don't need to go into quarantine. Again, it's another one of these items that we have universal support. I can't find one person here in DC or overseas that opposes it, but just getting it through the bureaucracy and getting it to be a fact is the challenge that we face. And if we could just get it started with one country, right now starting an air bridge between New York and London Heathrow is sort of top priority, top of the list. If we could do that, it could be a template to open up much more of the economy and air bridges around the world. There's no one that's opposed to it. It's just getting it over the finish line.
Pete, back to your question, I think it's very important that we remember that this is a jobs program. So what we're talking about for the next 6 months is hundreds of thousands of workers getting a paycheck and keeping their health care. And we will be 6 months closer to a vaccine, 6 months closer to a testing regimen where we have coronavirus under control. But in the meantime, what we're talking about here is saving the jobs of hundreds of thousands of people and keeping them employed. So this idea that we shouldn't do it because it's going to delay the inevitable is a really mean-spirited thing to say to people who are looking at losing their livelihood and their ability to care for their families in the middle of a pandemic. we also have to remember that we're right in the middle of the crisis. Everyone thought in March, thought and hoped that we'd be in a different place, but we're not. We're still directly in the middle of this crisis, and so we should continue the most effective jobs program of coronavirus relief and keep as many people strong and able to take care of themselves as possible. That's what this is about. That's why we're all out here today. That's what we're going to stay focused on, is saving those jobs and ultimately saving real people.
Thank you all very much for coming. We'll wrap it on that note. Thank you.